We can't hear you guys very well in the board offices.
Muffled.
It's very low and muffled, yeah.
Jason Robinson, Board President.
Now we can't hear anything.
Quiet. We can guess what we're supposed to do. Logan Steele, board member, present via Zoom.
Anybody? Anything?
I can hear that.
Okay, good.
And
I
you
think
have
that's
council?
yeah, there we go.
Raul Valdivia, Vice Chair.
Mark Piccioni, Executive Director.
Quinn Stoddard, board staff in office.
Sherry McPherson, OSCPA CEO in office.
Let's go to Zoom. Logan already introduced himself. Tanya?
Tanya Moffett, board accountancy member via Zoom. New title.
Welcome to Monday, December 1st. Thank you. Megan?
Megan Kurz, OSCPA Vice Chair and Board of Accountancy Liaison.
Thank you. And then the other two are just Zooms of people here. Great. Okay, agenda review and approval. With respect to item 2, review and approval of the draft public session for today. Has everyone seen and had an opportunity to review it? Remember that any motions, seconds, and votes have to be orally identify yourself with your full name. Any questions, comments on that?
Madam Chair, could you please, with respect to what is labeled as draft 2 of the public agenda that came out in the supplemental on just before Thanksgiving, I would respectfully ask that we pull item 3B, which is referred to as the public board summary of October 21, 2025. I simply wasn't able to get to it, notwithstanding Quinn's heroic efforts to give me a draft, but I still needed to do some work on it, so we'll have to defer that one. So just that's the only change that I'm aware of, unless others have.
Great. Anything else?
We've had another
Oh, great.
member join us.
Noting for the record that Amanda Fells of the OAI has joined. Is that sufficient? Do I have to actually make her say it? You're fine. Okay, great. We know her. Yeah. Unless she wants to say it. Okay, thanks, Martin. Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda as so amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Board Member Jason Robinson. Megan Hartley, second. Thank you.
I'll do better, I promise.
Thankfully, in this nice little script I have, it says, if someone says so moved, say yes.
Here.
I'm not prepared. It was lovingly put together by whoever puts together. Okay, great. We're gonna now take a roll call vote on the motion. I will call you by name and please respond when called on with either aye or nay or abstain. Okay, great. Jason Robinson.
Aye.
Megan Hartley, aye. Okay, Ralph,
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Q, Logan,
Aye.
Tanya,
Tanya Moffett.
Tanya Moffett. Oh, I'm in trouble. Haley Lyons, aye. Great, agenda set. Okay, on to item 3A, where we have the review of the meeting of September 25th. No motions needed here. Open for questions if anyone has any. Seeing none. Item B was removed from the agenda. Item C is the meeting summary of the November 6th OAC meeting. Any comments or questions there? Okay. Now we come to public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment? Please raise your hand in the room or use the Zoom raise hand feature. If I call on you for comment, you will be permitted to address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes, and staff will unmute you so you can speak. As chair, I reserve the right to end your comment early and have staff mute you if your comment does not pertain to the authority given to this board by the legislature to regulate the CPA profession and public accountancy firms in this state. No public comment. Great. Okay. Report of the OSCPA, Sherry or Megan.
Thank you. And Megan, do chime in if there's anything that you'd like to add. So last Monday, we all heard the news from the U.S. Department of Education. OSCPA joined in with basically there's an outreach from AICPA to the department. OSCPA joined in on that along with other CPA societies. Needless to say, disturbing news. So I am hopeful that there was enough negative response from around the country that, some reasonable adjustment is made to that.
So sorry for the record, are you talking about the announcement by the Department of Education that would no longer designate the accounting degree as a professional degree?
Thank you, yes. I guess I could have gone in that detail, but I figured everybody knew what I was talking about with that, so I apologize. So sorry, my irritation is showing, I guess, on behalf of the members we serve. Looking towards some more positive news, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but Martin, thank you for joining our board meeting on the 20th for a few minutes to visit with our board. So I'll leave it at that and just say, I'm in celebratory mode today, hence the attire, all sparkle. We've had a very busy few months between Ed Foundation and the OSCPA board and staff and Board of Accountancy and, a number of other folks that have contributed so much. And I would just like to publicly thank everybody for all of the efforts that have been made to this point. And again, I won't go into any further detail on that. So, but anyway, very positive. So coming up, well, let me go back to a couple of things. On November 5th, we had our Central Oregon chapter social event, and not specifically related to the Board of Accountancy, but Board of Accountancy member Logan Steele, was there present talking about the OSU Cascades program and accounting program, and we were really excited about that. And then also, and Martin joined us. Thank you for coming over, Martin, making that trip. It was very nice to have faculty visiting with the members that were present and having OSCPA and Board of Accountancy there to really talk about everything with the scholarship bill. And I would describe, the next piece too, Southern Oregon chapter. I was visiting with them at their social the next week, and then visiting with our board and Ed Foundation members. I would describe September, October, and November as hefty months, and I would describe them as a season of joy. That's the way I look at it. I wish that I could, just impart to everybody how joyous the room felt, you know, in Central Oregon, Southern Oregon, and some other meetings since at the Board of Directors meeting. You know, I went back and looked at the minutes, and it was 2 years, September, when Martin visited our board, and, you know, everybody was very excited about the prospect and to come full circle through the legislative and grant agreement, et cetera. So thank you to everybody. Coming back, on November 17th, we have the Board of Accountancy, OSCPA, OAIA joint town hall, and a 2-hour program. And thank you to everybody for contributing to that. It was very well received. And not as many people in the room, but you know, a big attendance. And thank you, Haley, for making the special trip out for that 2 hours too.
Lots of friendly faces in the room, so that's always nice.
Yes, yes. And then coming up on December 9th is the professional issues update. And so thank you, you know, again, Martin and Haley for that, because it's nice to give that update. So if anybody missed the town hall, they have that opportunity to pick up, you know, a little bit, you know, more condensed update, but still nonetheless a Board of Accountancy update. So opportunity to get information out to everybody. It's CPE scheduling season. It's our budget season. You know, we're partway through our year. We'll have a new fiscal year change April 1st. So there's a lot coming up within the next couple of months for CPE season 2, getting ready for tax season for corporate and then CPA firms. So anyway, and individual filing as well. So anyway, that's everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Amanda, report of OAIA. Oh, you don't have any sound. We're not hearing you. She doesn't even appear to be muted.
So Amanda, you did unmute, but there was still no sound. So there's something else going on your end.
She's trying to find her microphone app.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So thank you. Yeah, so for us, it is full CPE season. You know, we have our kind of our big annual classes that are happening in like November and December, and then also our updates into January. We are continuing to see kind of that national trend of decreasing in-person attendance and increasing online attendance. So we're trying to figure out ways to kind of balance that a little bit and try and kind of draw more people to the in-person seminars, just because we do see a lot of value there. But just kind of watching that and trying to figure out how we proceed there. And then I just really wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to partner with the board, with the town hall, with OSCPA and the board, how much we appreciate the partnership. And then also the fact that the board takes the time and the effort to hold these town halls, to give the licensees an opportunity to ask questions and things when there's still an opportunity for it to be impactful. So we really, really appreciate that and value that partnership. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to new business. Well, the first item of new business is NASBA's response to designating accounting as a non-professional degree. NASBA doesn't like it. Weird. And so that was a response, and you have it in your packet. Basically said, this is absurd, but in a much more diplomatic way. I don't know what the process. I mean, there's lots of professions that are dealing with this: nurses, architects, you know, like a lot of the backbone of our healthcare system. So it'll be interesting to see what shakes out of that. But certainly NASBA has come out very strongly against and is ready to support and deal with this in whatever way they can. I'm sure that John Johnson is just all haired up, which is great. You should be. Any other comments on that?
Just one, just for background for the board, just, you know, trying to just stay as non-political as I can. The actual policy impact of this is coming out of the Federal Department of Education, and essentially that long list of professions that are proposed to be making that transition from professional designation to non-professional designation. The primary policy impact of going down that road is to change the ability of how much you can borrow under certain federal student loans. So that's essentially kind of part of what the biggest implication is behind all of this. So there is, of course, the emotional piece around what it's no longer a professional degree, right? They're not saying that that's not legitimate, that has its own kind of emotional components in all professions. And I assure you, my inbox blew up just from my social work life from quite some time ago, because all the professions are going nuts about this. But really, in terms of the most direct impact of what you're dealing with there, it's really about the ability to borrow on a essentially preferred basis and what your limits are in terms of federal student loan eligibility. That's the most direct, straightforward impact. And I just want to make sure we put that on the record, that that's part of, I'm not saying that's the old motivation. I don't know what the motivation is of the federal government in all of this, but in terms of impacts, that's the one thing that's pretty clear and known in terms of, however many professions end up on the final version of the list.
Any other questions or comments about that? Okay. Jason. Jason tonight.
Another Jason. Thank you, Madam Chair. You have in your board packet a document with the draft rule changes that the LRC has been through and approved as of their last LRC meeting. These are ready for this board to walk through and ask questions and make decisions on. So it's a mere 100 and some odd pages. I don't know, Madam Chair, how you'd like to go through that. People have had the opportunity to look at it in their board packets.
And full disclosure, folks, I did send out a supplement, another version of the document yesterday when Logan saved me by figuring out that we ended up sending out a version that had accepted all tracked changes, which meant that we couldn't really see what the changes were. You just saw essentially what's proposed to be the final version of what the rules should look like. So there is another reference document for you on email. And that, I think, is kind of context for the question that Jason is asking around how would you prefer to kind of go through it? You want to go through it at a high level, go through it at a literally page by page piece, but you have one document on email from yesterday that has the track changes for you to refer to. And I think I actually am going to ask the folks that are online right now. I cannot remember if I sent out the track changes version. Oh, I did. I do believe I sent it out to the guests as well. So yes. Okay. For a moment, I was blanking and I couldn't remember whether I sent it out to just the board members. So just want to make sure people can follow along.
Why don't we take a few minutes to just kind of orient, if you haven't had a chance to. I've scanned through, I've gone through the document and am noting certainly the track changes, but just kind of give people a few minutes to take a look and see if there's any areas. The track changes is very helpful because it's like, okay, well, this is a editorial, like a word change or something. There's definitely a lot of cleanup in there. If there's something that is significant that we weren't expecting in here. My takeaway is that this was what I was expecting to come to us. Nothing like out of left field, but let's just take a few minutes to kind of scan. Okay, any questions or comments? We need more time. Concerns?
I have some comments for all nits, like editorial things.
I have some comments too. I'm still reading through, but I don't want to hold everyone up.
That's okay. I mean, no, I think take some time. Do you want to go through your nits? Sure. That are still valid. Categorized as a nit.
It comes with the territory here, I guess, as an auditor.
That's right.
Let's see, so I'm on the version in the packet, not the track changes version. So on, what page is this? On page 91, I think there's a rule number. Just say the rule number that you're looking at. Oh gosh.
It's on our screen. Just go up to the top. So, what page is you? You in definitions? Is this in definitions? It can't be 90.
I think this page is, oh, no?
No, it's got, if these are
Oh, I
definitions.
don't know why this is still.
Yeah, it's like delayed.
Yeah.
I think you're in the definitions. There you go. No?
Yeah, I don't know where I am. You should just go to this comment, right? Is that weird?
Yeah, it should just go to the.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, this isn't updating. I don't know why.
Weird. Okay. So which
Trying
comment?
to make this challenging, I guess.
So where are you making up? Where did you want to talk? Which rule did you want to, or go back to the first one? I don't want you to throw you off here. So I think you are, yeah, this is definition. So that's the, I can give you the rule number.
So we're in
005 definitions.
Yes. Division 5. And it's the first. And then you are on
73.
73.
I think there just needs to be a space
Okay.
between and possess.
Okay. Oh, a little A. Sorry. The definition of substantial equivalency. Okay, so you just need a spacing there.
Mhm.
Okay.
In this case, this is the rule, right? 801.
Yep.
Dash 010 dash.
Yep.
0061B.
So
Same thing.
yes, thanks. Oh, just spacing.
Text
Okay.
page. Yeah.
I'll just write it down. 801.
0060.
Space. Okay. Oh, because this is the one with the corrected track changes. Or where the
I think so.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is the one in the packet, not
Okay.
the track changes
Okay,
version, I
gotcha.
think.
Yep.
Let's see, what is this? So this is 801, 010, 0065,
10, 0065. Also a space issue.
1D3. I think it should be that the candidate has instead of candidates has. Show satisfactory evidence that the candidate has. Yeah, like all of these are candidate has. Down here it just says candidates has.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, gosh. What is this? Oh, this is in that same rule. Lesson how to use word here. Under I think this should be D, right? Because it's ABC.
Okay.
And then there's like another. So I guess under.
I think a lot of this is because it was just an accepted track changes issue, and so nobody has gone through it to look for that
gotcha.
stuff yet.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if like
yeah.
how final this final, I don't know.
That's one of the things, well, I don't want to throw Logan off, but one of the things we will have to do is there's a lot of corrections that still need to go through that, like, because the statute references all changed, right? And we will not have, that doesn't work like that, like what I thought. So what I thought was like we would have numbers by January 1 for the new citations, but we don't have them by January 1. So we will get something. So we will have to put in there, I haven't figured out the wording yet, but we will have to put some weird wording in there. Instead of citing to the statute, we cite to, she gave me like a chapter number or something. And then like, so we cite to that, and then we will have to, once the numbers come out, then we will have to go, we don't need rulemaking on it because it's just direct reference changes. But once those come out, and she told me when, I can't remember what she said now, but it's like a good 6 months away.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll put in these temporary references and then we'll have to go back through. I know, it's not my fault.
6.
Well, I could be wrong, maybe 3, but it's months. It's not like weeks, it's months away. It could be 3 months. It could be, I don't remember what you said, but it's months. So anyhow, but you want to just send me this?
Yeah,
If
that's
these are
what I
just
use
typos, then I can have those, and then and we can make sure. But because what we'll have to do is we'll do all the accept changes and then go through and like numbers. So we're going to have to do Scrivener error kind of stuff anyways, and have you guys give us the ability to do that and to change the references and all of that stuff. We will have to do that.
So, but what I'm hearing here, Angie, is that I wrote into the document in front of you a potential draft motion for later on.
Okay.
If you want to make sure that you reference in there to the Scrivener error piece, so you can help us with the proper motion around this stuff, because I think the board has been through and understands the concept of there are technical corrections that are not about policy changes. But if you can just look at the draft motion that I wrote up early this morning and make sure that the Scrivener's error piece is in there so that we can just kind of essentially deal with the technical stuff in one swoop and be done. Is there anything that you heard, Angie, from Megan that was more on the substantive side we need to discuss? It's mostly those types of corrections that we're dealing with.
Who's Megan?
Me.
Oh. Talking about the ledge council attorney. I was like, wait, her name isn't Megan. I was like, I don't know. You're the ledge council attorney you're talking about.
Yes, Megan's.
Oh, this is Megan. This Meg. Okay, this person to my right. I mean, I haven't looked at, she's just.
It is, all of them are
All
similar.
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All editorial stuff.
Again,
So my most of my things are technical, but I have one aspect that I'm a little confused by. It's in section 801.010.0045. Page 20, let's see, 27. Bottom page, no, hold on a second. Yeah, bottom page 27. Last item, print B.
So can you repeat the rule number again?
Rule number, oh, let's go back up.
You had it 801.
801.010.0045. And this is way down on page 27. I think 4 print B, bottom page 27.
Okay.
It says in print B, 2 years experience, blah, blah, blah. This experience must be completed before the candidate sits for the relevant portions of the CPA exam. And then it defines 2 years of experience. Am I reading that as you have to do your experience before you sit?
Is he the public account?
I think you're in the public account section. So yeah.
Good.
That same thing tripped me up at first.
Good.
I was
Okay.
like, wait, I didn't think that was it.
You're not the first one bringing this up. You
Yeah.
talked about this slogan. It is super
Well, sorry,
confusing.
yes.
Yeah, it is.
Because that's the one pathway that is the non-CPA pathway, but a PA pathway.
Yep.
Essentially is our only kind of remaining, if you will, apprenticeship, experience plus exam only pathway with no education requirement. And that's why it specifies how much you need to have before you can sit for the exam and how much after. And actually, Angie gets the credit for helping us clean this up because that wasn't terribly clear in our old rule set. And she kind of pointed that out and helped us take that on. But that is essentially, if you will, a little bit of an esoteric side piece in all of this, where the board made a policy decision roughly, I don't know, a year and a half ago by now, that we weren't going to extinguish this pathway, even though people are not really coming through on this pathway now, that we like options.
Yeah.
And I personally particularly like it because I keep hearing from folks, particularly in public accounting firms, that sometimes they have staff who would never consider the option of going back to a 4-year program, but are really, really terrific employees and may want to have some path forward that is essentially based on experience. And that's really the only thing we have left. So, but that's a little bit of a side topic, but it's a great catch, Logan. We stumbled over this in LRC as well.
Yep. Thank you. Just reading it in isolation, and yeah, that is great. Sounds good.
okay. Are there any areas, either Jason, that you think we should spend any time, like you're like, I really want you guys to note this and talk about it?
Madam Chair, there's probably one, but probably we could do that in January. And here's what I'm after, right? You have probably one of the hardest things that we had to do in LRC was when we veered off which I will simply call the fun part of writing the rules related to licensure pathway implementation. and we switched over to what do we need to do to tinker with the inactive versus, we already did the updates on the retired rules and the inactives, and the devil there really is in the details. And I just want to point out that it's really hard to just read through those rules and figure out what that effectively means, like literally at the street level for, a firm or a practitioner. In terms of impact. So one of the things that's happening at the staff level that I've asked the staff to bring in January is to resurrect something we used to have prior to all the rules changed, which is essentially a chart that we can publish that instead of asking people, well, not instead, but as a supplemental tool to having the rules language that essentially says, here's the comparison between this is what you can do with an inactive license. This is what you can do with a retired license, and kind of line that up with the rules language that's in here. And I think it's really, really important, together with any feedback that we'll receive on the exposed rules, that we take a look at that chart, because that's probably going to be the primary way practically that our own staff and others on the outside are going to try to communicate out the what's okay, what's not okay around, and I know Sherry's phone gets quite a few calls over OSCPA side with people, can I do this with, my retired license? Can I do this with my inactive license, right? So it's probably one of the more critical tools for us in terms of being proactive, avoiding more work than necessary. For Jeremiah, the more we have stuff out there that we are settled on, I would love to bring that back together with any comments as we finalize rules at the January 29 board meeting and say, okay, here's what we exposed, here are the comments, here's the chart. Are we comfortable with this? Because that'll be our basis, literally, for communicating stuff out and keeping people on the good side of the equation. And that's probably, if I have one topic, that's probably, surprisingly enough, the harder one. Then I'm not saying that there won't be materials on licensure pathways. We will need some, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this one is about the substance, right? The literal do's and don'ts in terms of the license types. Sherry?
Thank you. And I really, setting on lots of rules, which I appreciate, by the way, thank you. I appreciate that we had that conversation there. And now I put my OSCPA hat on, not lots of rules. I really do appreciate this, because when we had major rule changes before, those many years back with retired and inactive, we call it the grid, was put together. And over many years, I could point folks there where they could then read through and then be informed about what it said when I referred them to the Board of Accountancy. And so I just want to assure the board that OSCPA is not answering board specific, questions, but we are, starting as that reference point. And we get calls for other things like that too, where we'll say, okay, go to the Board of Accountancy page, go to the bottom to Board of Accountancy staff. This person called them. So I really do appreciate this. It wasn't easy before, but it was so valuable. So I'm really excited to move into this next step with this, because we'll really be able to use it well. Also.
Very different from that, but still important, and also very important contextually for the board to understand. We only briefly talked about this, I think, at the September board meeting, is that we will also need to publish out something that is of a very temporary nature, because we're about to enter process-wise. So this one is not about the substance. This is all about process, right? We are about to enter this 1 month period where we kind of go a little bit into kind of the regulatory equivalent of a twilight zone. And if you have a better term for it, AMG, you're welcome. But basically, just board, it's really, really important to remember that on January 1, we enter about roughly 1 month time period where our rules and our statutes will not align. And it's just one of those side consequences that happened with Senate Bill 177, because the statute literally kicks in 1 minute after midnight on December 31, the first, second of January 1. But it will take us about a month through the January 29 board meeting and hopefully with finishing rules then and a rule effective date of February 1, where essentially we will have a disconnect between our rules and our statutes. In that 1 month time period, right, is a temporary time period where process-wise, different things will need to happen, particularly over on the licensing side. Basically, in many occasions, meaning we can't process your stuff until our laws and rules align, just super high level. It'll be about 1 month worth of, if you will, delay and disruption kind of a period for us. So there's going to be some communication out. We will try to keep that as light and hopefully non-worrisome for folks. We're not going to reject folks. It just means that certain things just not going to work for about roughly a month, right? It's not the end of the world, but we're going to communicate it clearly. And Angie, whatever it is that we communicate, I will run through you in this case, because it's really about legal constraints that we have about what we can and what we cannot actually process through on the licensing side while we have that disconnect. So that's the only other piece I wanted folks to know about, since you talked about, hey, what are the two things the board really should talk about? That one on January 29, this one's kind of more of a heads up for today. And then beyond that, I would be remiss if I don't at least at the end say, there's no way, notwithstanding the heroic efforts of the LRC itself, that we would have gotten to this document without Angie putting in oodles of work of a heroic nature next to a very demanding client that I shall not name in public, a demanding client other than the Board of Accountancy. That's the only thing I will say. So thank you, Angie, because there's a ton of work in this document that would not have happened at that level of detail. Yes, we did a lot of work at the staff level, but really Angie pulled a lot of hours as well. That's it.
Other comments, questions?
May I make a comment, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Angie.
So,
Thank you.
I second that comment. Lions culture.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to do something here. We need a motion to.
Are you
I don't
good with
have-
what I drafted?
Yeah,
out here?
I think, so what this is drafted as is I need a motion to expose the proposals presented, effective, but they're not as amended yet. So,
So
Okay.
as presented.
yeah, as presented, effective January 1 with the rulemaking hearing on January 29.
So that's in C. That's a new business C,
Okay,
discussion
yeah.
LRC
So where's the
recommendation.
draft?
Yeah.
Decision to expose.
Is that the right?
Yeah, that is the right date.
Okay. Okay, so you always say expose. I always think initiate rulemaking. So you would say this, which is fine, expose is but so and of course when written comments period. I guess we need to do, so we can do a motion to do that, but then also we want to put in, you didn't have any language in there about Scrivener's error.
I did not.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking, do we need to do that as a separate motion or do we need to change this draft?
I think we should just change this draft to say like, I need a motion to expose the proposed rules as presented. So to expose the proposed rules as presented, allowing for any
Clerical error.
clerical error changes and changes to references.
For any, clerical error changes and
Statutory references.
and statutory reference changes. And the rest works for you? Because otherwise I can simply
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
read that in and ask someone to do a so moved.
Yep.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So I would respectfully ask one of the board members to make a motion to expose the proposed rules as presented, allowing for any clerical error changes and any statutory reference changes effective January 1, 2026, with a rulemaking hearing on January 29, 2026 at 9 a.m. and a corresponding written comment period.
Jason Robinson, so moved.
Need a second?
Megan Hartley, second.
You. Any discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote and we'll start back with Jason.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
Cool.
I was gonna actually repeat that again, Mark, but
Yeah.
I saw the struggle.
Hey, great work. That is a heavy lift and
Huge lift.
yes.
When you say what discussions did we have, I said, I think that pretty much there's some minor things on here that we discussed for hours, so.
Right. Yes. So much. Nuances.
Yeah, I don't miss the LRC at all.
By yourself for the record.
Right, sorry.
You didn't say that she doesn't miss the LRC. She didn't say she didn't miss the LRC chair. So that's.
That's true, of course.
See LRC.
Wow.
It's so hard. It is
It's so hard. Yeah, it really is.
So thank you for all of your work.
Appreciate that. Appreciate
Sherry does not vote in favor.
From an emotional intelligence standpoint, I shouldn't say that the hardest work is still coming.
Yeah. Yes. Nick and I are fine with that.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Okay. We are on new business item D. Consideration and adoption of the corrected draft 2026 board meeting calendar, which are in the materials, but is this the one, the board meeting calendar that I'm looking at currently shows a Thursday, February 5 board meeting?
It's the incorrect one that I tried to correct.
So the
Because
correct
it's,
meeting,
that was partially the problem, or at least the biggest problem on there.
right, okay. The correct date is January 29th. Is that correct?
Yes, January 29, and Angie, can you please publicly confirm that
Yes.
this did not move anything on your calendar and that we still have you on January
Yes,
29th?
you did, yeah.
Because that was my other panic moment. And Quinn, can you confirm that internally in our systems, everything's still pointing to the 29th, not to February? Because for the reasons we just discussed around the rules, this one is a no error, squeeze it in exactly the right time board meeting, avoiding conflicts for Haley and NASBA the week prior, and making sure that we can still have a legal rulemaking hearing that's at least 21 days after January 1 and gets us into, a rule adoption date, hopefully on February 1.
Great. Any questions or comments on the board calendar? If not, I need a motion to accept the proposed board calendar
With one change in date.
with as amended.
So moved. Jason Robinson, so moved.
Great, Megan Hartley, second.
Great. We will do a roll call vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes. I will continue to look to this side of the table for the rest of the day on voting and come to you. Board member, here we go. Yeah, I know. I've now done it every single time where I'm like, nope. Okay. Moving on. E, NASBA AICPA exposure draft on CPE standards. Okay, so the question is, do we want to comment on this? we are expecting that there will likely see a AICPA peak exposure draft soon that we're going to need to deal with at the January 29th board meeting on the independence matters around APS PE. With respect to the CPE standards, there's a lot of like just kind of rejiggering the language in here to make it more modern. You know, we have different ways that we can obtain and receive CPE. Does anybody feel strongly about commenting on behalf of the board?
No, but it's sometimes nice if there's no comments to still submit a comment that we don't have any comments.
Yeah, that's true.
Just because it's just easier to be like, well, nobody responded, but even if it's fine.
Yeah.
At least they know we read it and.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
And we chose to affirmatively acknowledge that we read it. And
Yeah, I can
I think
easily
that's
do
a good
that.
strategy. Yeah.
We read it and have no comments.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a single sentence that I think I can strive to write by the December 16 years.
You for your work on this. No comments. Okay. Right, let's do it. December 17th. Is that what you just said?
I think
that's
it's 17 or 16 from what I
It's
recall.
the 16th.
The 16th, yes.
This potential motion, do we need a motion for
it.
that?
Motion? Yes.
We gave staff direction. So.
Yeah, so
I
do we
think
know?
this is, yeah.
Okay.
Because we're not really,
If it's no comment,
it's a no comment.
then you're fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
But unless somebody has
We definitely need a vote if we were going to do something substantive, but this is just, we read it and have no comments. So I'm good with staff direction unless anybody feels strongly that we need to go through voting. I feel directed.
Great. Great. Next item, AICPA peer review standards exposure draft. This comment period is closed. So really it's information only on that. Are you going to check in with the OSCPA on this? Or am I
Yes.
supposed to?
Well, I mean, no, please. I just warned Sherry before this meeting that I was going to ask her because I quite frankly, I don't know if everybody on the board even knows what the proposal is around the potential changes related to peer review, related to APS PE. Do you want to cover that part, Sherry, or do you want me to cover what it is and then just jump in society side, or how would you like to do it?
Yeah, just jump in, both from AICPA public session board meeting.
Yeah.
If I'm on the National Peer Review Board, and then also from the OSCPA side.
Yeah.
So, and when I talk about OSCPA side, I'll kind of talk generally about CPA society side. So as the layperson on the National Peer Review Board, there's always layperson, or if they happen to be a CPA, they're CEO, one of the state societies, then they would be there as CPA also. But that position comes out of the membership organization we have, CPA SCA, which is Certified Public Accountants Society Executives Association, and that's made up of all of the CEOs. So we end up representing on various committees. So I was asked to be on the board. So this ended the second year on that. The exposure draft was out. It was due, I think, October 27th. I think that was. I had it written down here a moment ago. Yeah, October 27th. And what the exposure draft, if you were to generalize and to summarize it way down, is there is this perspective about concern related to peer reviews for APS and PE. And so it basically focuses on bringing the peer reviews back to AICPA. And as discussed at that the public board meeting, which was on the 11th of November, that would bring it back temporarily to AICPA. They'd be working through, concern is about, obviously people reviewers getting up to speed, learning mode on it, as well as, the concerns that AICPA, and I'm not speaking for them at this moment, has around independence and those types of things. So needless to say, my society hat on, reaching out to my colleagues, what's on your mind about this? Obviously, it wasn't met with a joyous response, we'll just say that, because you would end up with AEs, so administrative entities, having a number of these peer reviews going back into AICPA on a temporary basis. But what would that mean in this transitionary period in the meantime? Right, so there's concern about, okay, when they come back, would there be enough reviewers? It's like the transitionary time. I think, not speaking specifically for one, but one AE is like, will they come back at all? Although, publicly we did hear that it is supposed to be a temporary basis. So the exposure draft is complete. There was no, as we heard, there was no vote at the peer review board. What happened at the peer review board meeting too is there's two task forces that are there. One split out on this, and then the other split out on the educational side. Unfortunately, I was in the educational side, so I didn't get to hear all of the feedback on the other side, closed session, so wouldn't have been able to share everything anyway. But I felt like what came out in the public session was very thorough. It's not really been, in my opinion, OSCPA, it's not been met with a lot of excitement from the society. So we'll see these next steps. Related to that, today I'm needing to step out for a Zoom meeting. I'm like multi things scheduled today, which is really weird, but I don't want to miss that because we'll be hearing more as AICPA is visiting with the CEOs and the societies. A vote was not taken on this in the last month, so we'll see. There was, there were a number of, responses back on the exposure draft. So, it really seemed that there was much more work to be completed. So at the end of that open board meeting, it was announced that it hadn't been completed yet. So we weren't at finalization.
So thank you, Sherry, for that. I also attended the open session portion for all of this. And feedback that I have for the board is two things. One is just a personal observations / opinion. I was really struck by the fact that this was a national meeting where there was actually a surprising amount of space given to feedback from firms, communities, stakeholders. That was not cheering on APS-PE. That was actually, it was a very open back and forth discussion with considerable room allowed for disagreement, if you will. And I thought that was actually really healthy because we haven't always, particularly at the national level, been known to encourage that type of environment. And that actually I thought was pretty impressive, that I was not prepared that was going to be allowed to happen. And it did happen. And I actually think that that's a good sign, that there is a little bit more room for that. The second piece is I did have an opportunity, and they were very gracious to actually allow me to ask a question in there, because I essentially asked the question of, given that there is this proposed change to, hey, should we change the peer review process for these APS-PE firms, right? There was a slide that they presented that basically listed a set of reasons for that. And the fourth reason on there was results from peer review. And so I asked the question is, what is that meant to suggest on that slide? Do they have data coming out of peer reviews already that they're able to talk about in a public session that shows some kind of a concern or link between problems that they see propping up, kind of showing up in the peer review process that essentially is part of their motivation of saying we need to make a change and these peer reviews need to be done at the National Peer Review Committee level and not at the administrative entity level. And the response was really interesting because essentially the response was, we actually don't have that data. Because I also asked a second follow-up question around, if you have that data, are you sharing it with the administrative entities, right? Because I'm sure they would like to learn what it is they need to do better if they do see problems. And interestingly enough, the answer basically was that they don't actually have specific data yet that points to this is a peer review that took place in an APS-PE context and we saw XYZ problems, right? So I left, in all honesty, while I appreciated that it was a healthy environment where you could ask that question, I left a little bit confused to what specifically the underlying rationale is for the change, what it is they're trying to accomplish with the change, given that they weren't able to, at least not at a public session, say, here's the problem we're trying to address, right? And as a public policy person, I'm used to an environment where anytime somebody says, here is the proposed solution, usually we have some kind of a definition of a problem. Here's what the problem is. Here's the data supporting the problem. Here's what we think the solution is. Here's why we think the solution will work. And it felt a little bit like there were elements missing in all of this. It doesn't mean that I have an opinion as to whether that's the wrong or right thing to do, but it felt a little, I had a really hard time understanding what exactly the basis is for why this is the right solution, right? And I'm not trying to sound critical, but it was just from a strictly analytical standpoint, it was a little choppy, if you will. It was a little choppy. So that's the only other thing I would add to that piece.
Thank you for that update. Okay, I'm moving on to old business, 8A, update on the scholarship program implementation through OSCPA Educational Foundation.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and start real quickly, Jason. This is Shelley Ostrom. So quick update on that. On the back end, there was an ACH transfer. And I will simply say, I observed the emails going through. It was our amazing CFO staff, Lubov, working directly with Jason Robinson to get this off the ground, and I'll let you pick it up from there.
I don't know what else to say.
You authorized it.
Yeah, it's a fairly easy transaction. It's went really smooth. And the program is rolling. So yeah, awesome job, everybody.
He's in the bank account.
There's a lot that's happened since October 21, because literally on that day, we did the rules adoption for the grant agreement. We adopted the grant agreement about roughly 3 hours, 10 minutes after the board meeting concluded. OSCPA Education Foundation board met, adopted the agreement, right? So October 21 was a really, really big day. And then it was just an issue of putting things together. And that's really when Shelley stepped in, because I was gone for part of the time, and Shelley just took the ball and ran with it. And CFO Lyubov Salov, our accountant, really, I mean, we have a really, really terrific accountant on the DAS side, on the back edge.
Very lenient too.
She's very experienced. She's very, very good at helping us literally maneuver state government. And so between her and Jason and Shelley, I pretty much was like, all I had to do is kind of watch the train. Was pretty amazing. So thank you all.
That's great. Thank you. Good work, everyone.
I can give you the next steps if you want.
Oh yeah,
Now
definitely.
that the celebration is over, our editing student vendor. So anyway, I wore my most sparkly sweater to our board meeting just because it's a really big day. The next step, since we were working on paper before signing the grant agreement just to keep things rolling. So the Ed Foundation subcommittee had met several times. And, we've met a few times since, right before Thanksgiving. So we're basically in those final stages of wording we're basically calling this accounting access scholarship, because that's related to some of the terminology within the grant agreement. At the same time, and I know, Haley, you have some background on the OSCPA Ed Foundation. So you know what I'm talking about. That basically is that academic side. And that's how we're differentiating the two scholarships internally with the Ed Foundation. So on the accounting access, our academic has launched already, and we're just on this final stage, waiting for the ACH to go in. So we have an official funding in place for the scholarship. We have just a couple of fine-tuning things that we're working on the criteria, and we're getting ready to launch that out. And it'll be launching out in a variety of pathways out, to faculty, to our student membership. We're just off of many campus visits where we've talked about, a variety of things, and, we've verbally talked about, working on, but at that point not completed the scholarship, but we talked about, Senate Bill 796. We could talk about it from that perspective because that was done. And so we'll be moving through all of that, and here soon. The grant agreement has December 31st as that time frame. So we're in great shape with that. And I really thank everybody for that too, because, it's that push to make sure we're ready. The deadline will be in February for the students, and then thereafter we'll be working through that criteria, and then coming into the March meeting. I'm trying to remember if it's the 19th or the 21st. Anyway, that March Ed Foundation meeting, and that's the scholarship selection meeting. I think the 19th scholarship selection meeting, where we'll be working through that both with the academic scholarships, but as well the accounting access scholarships. So that's kind of the timeline. From that standpoint, going forward to looking at it, the funding will be in fall for the fall 2026 term, starting there. And, looking through, whether this is, and basically in the grant agreement, it talks about thresholds like $3,000, $5,000. Probably award those all at one time for students versus in pieces because of how that impacts administrative. And, when you start coming back, if you're doing it by pieces, then you have that GPA to follow all along. So anyway, we're looking at that too, just to make sure we can get those funds out. The legislative bill, encouraged that we get things pushed out. So that's a lot of perspective as well. So, and by the other point of that too, there is reporting, the KPIs, et cetera. So we've just had that grant agreement out in front of us all along as we've been walking through the criteria, just to make sure. So a few questions that have come up here and there, and making sure we're getting through the research to be sure that we're in step. So thank you.
The timing couldn't be better given the potential limitations on federal funding for students. So that's great. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
Okay. B. Level Set 2027 legislative concept draft on private equity related firm registration.
Okay. I can kick us off briefly. You have in the supplemental documents that came out on Wednesday the 26th, a document that should look vaguely familiar from the September board meeting. And I want to just do two things briefly here. I don't want to rehash the whole discussion necessarily, but I want to level set with a goal of two things. One is kind of bring the board back to kind of where did we leave off in that discussion, right? And just the core of it at a super high level is that where we landed as a board is that we're trying to move toward a legislative proposed solution that would require those firm entities that provide public accountancy services tied to a registered CPA firm through an administrative services agreement, so very narrowly the ESA angle, to still register with the board, right? Effectively, what that would mean is that that proposal would authorize us to create a new firm level type license that would not require majority CPA level ownership, but basically create a mechanism for us where for those firms that are going down the APS PE route, that the non-attest side that currently essentially in most cases either doesn't tell us or sends us letters that they're no longer a CPA firm, essentially would be clearly in a space where that same level of accountability that we currently have in the non-APS PE space exists, which is you're still a CPA firm and you need to register. It's deliberate. And the other piece that the board's been really clear upon in that proposal is that we are not changing our policy intent and starting to sweep up business that we don't sweep up now, which is particularly, the issue with private sector entities that may happen to employ more than one CPA, but are not part of, essentially APS PE world. So, the Nikes of the world, the Olympias of the world, and, you get the idea. So part of what I'm trying to do is I want to make sure that we level set where we are before board counsel, now that she's going through the first stage of residual trauma from the LRC rules process, can move on to, sorry, my mental health stuff comes through sometimes. The mental health regulatory background comes through, can move on and get her second shot at trauma opportunities in this form of drafting a much less wordy, so we're not talking 110 pages. In this case, the deliberate intent is a short, standalone legislative policy draft that completely unlike what the board's seen before with respect to 177 would not make this amendment here and that amendment there in our statutes, but be a standalone separate piece narrowly trying to accomplish what I just laid out. So there's two goals here. One is to just level set, this is where we left off in September. And are we still good with that before board counsel dives in and tries to bring a language draft that she's eager to have ready for the January 9 Laws and Rules Committee meeting? She hasn't heard this before, so this is kind of my way of signaling board counsel the timeline here. And essentially have that as a discussion basis in LRC so we can bring her draft LRC discussion to the January 29 board meeting on this issue. So that's objective number one here. Objective number two, and Raul, fair warning, I'm going to drag you into this in just a moment, right, is to actually give you an update on some of the feedback that we've gotten as we've started to discuss this. Primarily, me with some colleagues, but there was also a fair amount of discussion at the NASBA annual meeting. And I'll start it off, but then I would love to, that feedback loop, but I would love for you to kind of jump in and also add in anything that, because I know you got dragged into this as well at the annual meeting, and kind of add in kind of what that did from your perspective with respect to the feedback. Did it change your mind in some way or change your perspective in some way? I will say there were two buckets of feedback, and they were very different. One is that I will simply say there is a bucket that is simply about there is a distinct lack of understanding in the rest of the country around the very different approach Oregon has historically taken for decades around firm registration. We simply have been an outlier and have become more and more of an outlier because we broadly regulate CPA firms. And most jurisdictions simply don't do that. They generally regulate firms in the test space And for those that used to regulate firms in the non-attest space, many of them have retreated over time, right? So part of it that you run into, and that to me is bucket number one, actually has, from my perspective, almost nothing to do with APS or PE. It's simply we don't understand what you guys are doing over in Oregon. There's something in the water over there, kind of the keep Oregon weird type regulatory piece. And I don't mean to be sounding dismissive, but it's literally a lack of understanding of why we have historically gone down this road in Oregon, right? And it's really, really important to distinguish that from the second bucket. Because I'll be honest, my personal perspective around this, the first piece here that I just said is factual. My personal opinion is I'm not as worried about that bucket, because to me, that's about, we have our reasons why we were where we were, and that's a communication issue. That's an explanation issue. To me, that's not a policy issue, right? What I'm much more, if you will, interested in and worried about is the second bucket.
So wait, the first bucket, what I'm hearing you say is we've made our life more difficult, and we can stop regulating firms and just
that's always
get rid of all this
policy choice.
Not worry about it anymore.
Is to not do a ledge concept and just say, let's just join the other states and essentially retreat from the regulatory space. That's always, and it's still an option for this board to change course, but you're absolutely right about that.
Right, so the people who have, the people who are in states that don't have, who already aren't regulating that are kind of like, what are you thinking? I mean, simply put, there's a level of like, really, you're going to take on this and open yourself up to these issues? And it's like, my perspective is we don't have a choice. We have to do something. So we either lean into maintaining our level of regulatory oversight, or we pull back our regulatory oversight.
And that's a really fantastic summary, because it also helps you understand why I am more worried about bucket number two. Bucket number two comes from folks that I consider as not having particularly strong opinions around APS, PE, but are simply hardcore regulators and really come at this from a simple regulatory perspective. And the feedback, one feedback piece that I got from a really, really, really distinguished colleague is, I'm super worried that Oregon is opening the door to effectively creating a license type that explicitly allows, essentially creates a version of firm license that explicitly allows non-majority ownership, right? So it's essentially kind of viewing it as kind of like you're opening the barn door a little bit to something that could spread, almost like, it's almost like an infection argument. Like,
I mean,
are you sure that you want to start opening that door, right? So that was one that I took very seriously, because that's, it's a very legitimate kind of.
Well, you're sort of solving one problem but creating another.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. The second one after that, I struggled with a bit more, which is essentially was this argument that came up that basically said, hey, have you thought about the fact that if you were to issue a license to these non-attest entities, right, that then effectively you're going to be stuck with appearing to have blessed what goes on in there. And then if things go sideways, you're going to be kind of part of the blowback loop. I struggled with that a lot more, because I quite frankly wanted to say back, so if you're simply saying that your approach to this, if you think that there's a problem here, is that you simply step away and don't regulate it at all, is the best way to protect the public, help me understand the argument, right? So, but it is just for transparency's sake, I wanted to at least bring up that we have these two different buckets of feedback, like, hey, this might be radioactive. Do you really want to regulate it? Right? Essentially is one argument that I got. And the other one is, do you really want to open that door? Right. And so I just wanted to pass that on as kind of the two categories of feedback that I got back from the NASPA annual, but I'll stop there because I'm pretty sure you heard others and had your own.
Yeah. When I went in there, I had a specific mindset of what we had discussed here. It's still, okay, let's regulate it, but still on the fence a little bit. But at the conference, they had a panel, if I forgot, 3 or 4 people, and basically had a discussion of what this was all about and the pros and cons and whys. And I started shifting over as I was listening, and also the white paper they presented was very, very informative for me. I started shifting over because I said, if we do nothing, we just sit there and do nothing, we're going to have a little group of firms sitting out there that are going to be doing all this stuff because they're so entwined. I couldn't get out of the fact that they were so entwined. Leasing employees. It's the words right here. What's that all about? I mean, there's so much things like when you mentioned right now, Martin, a little while ago, about you asked that question about what data do you have?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my question was, is there no data, or they couldn't get the data, or they don't know if peer review has seen things and they don't know about it in those situations? And just that alone tells me somebody's got to be looking at it. Somebody's got to be there to look at it. Now, that bucket that you're talking about, that second bucket, bottom line is, for lack of better words, I don't care. If these, our intent is to protect the public the best we know how. And if that means create another license so we can regulate these privately owned pieces of these CPA firms, just saying that.
Right.
Just
That's
like,
what they are.
yeah, it's like, okay, and you have CPA firms in there. I just can't get away from that. And so when I was there listening, I think I forgot who it was. I forgot the names of the people, but I know there was one person who just wanted to leave it alone. Just didn't want to touch it. And excuse me, but I could see his point to a point. But I come back to the fact that these firms will crawl into this state, do all this work, and not be regulated. There's got to be some type. And basically, when they were looking at, I was absorbing the fact that there's independence issues. Okay, I could see those, but as I was reading between the lines, to me, it was just these private equity owners. It's just all about money. It's just they want to come in, fix things, get it going, and then unload it, and then move on to the next project. Like flipping a house, somebody put it. It's like flipping a house.
Yeah.
You're no longer touching it.
A consequence to the back end. When PE pulls out, what are we left with?
Right.
After having not looked at it, if we just go like this, the PE pulls out, what's left? We still need something.
Right. So just to put it from my perspective, I was really, really enlightened because, like I said, I was on the fence there, and haven't been able to really read that white paper and then hear the panel put me on the side, like you said, to level it out, to say, we got to do something. And if the rest of the jurisdictions don't like it or think we're weird about doing that, I mean, I just fall on the fact that, hey, we're trying to protect the public. We're trying to go forward. But I can't remember what was said at the regional meeting. I think we talked about it there as well, but I don't remember the comments at that level.
Well, that was prior to us landing with that level of clarity on what we just talked about. I don't think we really hit that moment, I think, until we started having a policy discussion in August after regional. And then I tried to kind of write it all up and bring it to the September board to try to give the board something that kind of like gives it that snapshot, which is kind of what I reattached here. So I think this is what I heard of where you're at, right? And that's essentially, where we're at. And do we want to proceed? What are the thoughts regarding the feedback?
Jason on my left, you started to say something at one point. I want to grab that comment if you still have it.
So as we go through this process, may I ask questions, Madam Chair, just so I have an understanding from the LFC standpoint?
Yes.
With that approval, what are the other states doing, or what are their thoughts about, we have this entity, it's not owned majority by CPAs, so the board can't regulate it. So far, so good, right?
Yep.
They're regulating the individual CPAs that are working within it.
Mm-hmm.
If they use the title.
If they use the title, then I think about the record keeping, and I retire, and who's got the records, and did they have any response to that?
The enforcement matter, like not even just the record keeping, and then you take it a step farther and go with the enforcement component.
Right.
How do you get all of those? How do you accumulate? And I don't know if that has been.
I struggle with that too. And the only honest thing I can say is that part of the answer that I'm getting when I ask this question is, why are you so worried about this? We already stopped regulating that space before APSP came along.
Yeah.
So I can move to one of those states as a tax practitioner, have my wife and my in-laws own the firm, and then the firm's not regulated.
Well,
That's right.
Relationships with this in-laws.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Which is why it's so simple for other states to essentially bury their head in the sand and be like, we're not touching this. We're going to look at independence and we're going to do all that. And yet on the independence matter, everyone's defaulting to form. And I think we all learned about substance also. And that it's like the form does potentially demonstrate a level of independence, but the substance does not at all. And so it's really interesting to me, the level of like, what are you guys trying to do? It's like, what are you trying to do? Oh, nothing? Okay, cool. Well, that's on you. And so I think the blowback actually, to add on to your second, is if this all goes sideways or whatever, and it's like, if we do nothing, there's blowback there too. I think our legislators could say, why did you guys not do anything?
I'm actually really pleased that you just brought that up, because I think in September already, I said to the board, regardless of what we do, you have one guarantee. The legislature will ask, no matter what we propose or don't propose, saying, hey, we heard about all this private equity stuff going on in the accountancy profession. What did you do about it and why?
Especially considering their stance on the medical profession.
Yeah.
I love how when we first started discussing this a while back, it was, how do we stop this from happening? And then we saw the wave that we couldn't stop, and we're like, okay, so how do we finagle these guys into all of our rules and change all the little areas that we had to incorporate, and how would we do that and everything? I think this is a much simpler approach. So I like it a lot. But it's a new revenue.
Thank you, Treasurer.
Just here?
New revenue.
Revenue stream. I've never been in a agency, and I've been working for the government for 24 years. I've never been in an agency that has proposed a new revenue stream, so it'll be interesting.
I have a question.
Thanks, Jason.
I'm looking forward to the discussions.
If this an example of PE for piece of a CPA firm did something where a citizen sued them or had a problem with what they did, where would they go if they were not regulated? To lodge their complaint and to get justice or whatever.
Well, I don't know, Andrew, you might need to help me with this one. I think you really asked two separate questions here, right? I think part of what I heard from you is on the complaint side, which to me triggers administrative law regulatory space, right? The only place that you can go is essentially after the individual level CPA that's still regulated, right? You don't have the option to go after the firm because on the regulatory side, the only thing a regulatory entity tends to have authority over with some asterisk, like, holding out, claiming that you're a CPA and if you're not, right? But largely there has to be a license in place, right? So that on the complaint side of the equation, the answer to your question is they really, as a consumer, you only can go after the individual level CPA. And on the complaint side, strictly the regulatory side, I don't think that there is a way for you to hold the firm accountable at all, right? Now that's different from, and this is where I probably should stop and kind of look at Angie, right? Because part of your question seemed to also use the word sue, which implies civil law and torts, right? I think there it's a little bit different because there's no license requirement that needs to be in place. It just means, do you have a case against whether it's individuals or entities that you're willing to pursue on a civil side? But I'll probably stop there because that gets a little legalistic. I don't know if you want to get if you want to add anything else on to that, but that's my super high level answer.
Continuing on my soapbox.
Sorry,
I'll add on to that, continuing on my soapbox, and I'll be done, is that, your point is also that, so new CPA just gets their license, they've got 2 years of experience, they are a fresh college grad, 2 years experience, they've passed the exam, they've had experience, or supervised experience, they are doing what their employer has directed them to do. They have no judgment. They have judgment, but they don't, the nuance in time at times of what is right, wrong within the confines of what we should do, shouldn't do. They got to buy groceries. So that firm is likely the one that's really responsible for a lot of misconduct of the individual licensees. In a lot of ways, if they're in a larger firm, it's likely that they're following whatever checklist the firm has put out. And we have no way to say, this is actually, just because someone complained against this CPA, there's actually 40 more doing the exact same thing in this firm because of how the firm has structured their firm. And yeah, I don't like that.
Well, we already seen what happens to even good CPAs when they're chasing after money.
Yeah.
There was a company called, Arthur something?
Arthur
I can't remember.
Arthur A.
Yeah.
What?
It doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Because they're chasing the money. And that's all that this new form will be, is them chasing money.
I want to get Tanya, I'm calling you out, Tanya, just as a new board member. And you shared some thoughts at our last board meeting, kind of think about your take on this, but I want to get your thoughts. Like, how do you feel about this direction? Is this in alignment with what your thoughts are and all of that?
Yeah, I think this is in alignment. I think my biggest concern, especially one of the things that I haven't heard us discuss, is like, okay, so what happens if there is a complaint against a specific CPA and that individual leaves the firm? There's no way for us to get that information. So I think that this allows us to have access and requires compliance with investigations too. So,
which protects the CPA themselves, because then they have a way to defend themselves.
Well, and the other piece is also, if a firm has policies and procedures or lack of quality control in place that is then causing the complaint to come about towards a specific licensee, there is a mechanism for the board to be able to incentivize firms to be in compliance. So for me, I think this is the route that we need to go, because it allows us to help protect the public, which is our big concern. So I get that other states are afraid of it and don't want to do it, but we already are doing it and there's a reason that we're doing it. So
Thank you. Okay,
I guess I just want to make sure that we're doing it for the right reasons, right? We're biased towards continuing to regulate things because we're a regulator. So I just want to make sure that we're like, we're just like thinking of all the potential repercussions and just that the nuances here that we're talking about, are really incremental to what we could be doing if going after the CPAs individually. I mean, I think the biggest argument that I've heard is mostly around like maintenance of documentation and evidence for investigation or what have you.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's from directive too.
Right.
Yeah, if I'm being told that I need to go do this, even though it's like, yeah, is that the right thing to do? Or take on this client that's like, yeah, that's it's because they're paying us a lot to do this job. Is that really the right thing to do? Normal CPA firms will drop the job. But if the firm that's controlling the firm is saying, no, we want you to go out and do that, it's going to cost us a lot of money.
Well, but I mean,
They
they
don't
don't
have
make a
the-
judgment as a CPA.
Yeah,
I mean, if
exactly.
Deloitte comes and asks me to do something, then I'm like, well, I never work in that industry. I'm not comfortable signing that report. And they're like, well, you're going to do it. I mean, it's still my job to say like, no, I'm not. Like, and if you want to fire me, then fine, but I'm not doing that because I don't have the appropriate skill to sign my name to that report.
Yeah.
So I still feel like that would be a valid.
That's that subordination of judgment. Yes.
Right, correct. Yes, that is right. You still, as an individual CPA, have that responsibility.
Right.
And I think I think that part of the reason why I feel strongly about it is because of my experience on the complaints committee and then here on the board and seeing the types of infractions that tax practitioners have inflicted on members of the public and how those members of the public get any sort of justice, for lack of a better term, and that then other members of the public aren't subjected to the same thing. I mean, we've just seen a number of bad apples, and while I don't know that I think that a non-attest firm at the highest level is full of bad actors, I mean, I don't have any reason to believe that at all. We have, I think, been able to keep some semblance of control over kind of the tax side of the world by having that regulation.
Yeah, and maybe the tax nuance is the piece that I don't know, because I think about Baker Tilly, right? And I'm like, man, they have a couple of of their CPAs in the news. I mean, sweet, we'll take all their business and they'll be done. So it's so I don't really, I mean, word travels fast from a quality perspective, even if cost is a component of it. And so I guess maybe on the tax piece, I don't have as much of an appreciation for.
Tax piece can be different. I've seen firms take positions that I look at and go, interesting. Here's why I think there's problems with it. Can you give me your research? Tell me why you think that's right. And the response was, oh, well, we don't have the kind of support that you've provided us. We just think it works. Right. Well, that's nice, but my client's not involved in that. We're not doing that. And they're doing it because let's take this aggressive position and you'll pay us money. So that's out there.
Right. But if you get audited, we have to help you support that position. I mean.
Yeah, maybe. But I saw an egregious one. It was an attorney on the other side, egregious, proposing something with stunning fee. It didn't work. 100% didn't work. And the attorney had zero to support it.
I also think on another side, I've been a year or so, Jason, you said something here, sat right over there, and said, the state and federal government are members of the public as well. And as a taxpayer, there is an obligation to also protect them and make sure that people are getting their taxes done correctly. And and like that has played in my mind a bunch of times in this conversation of like, there's still an obligation to try to, I think, to ensure there's quality around tax preparation services as well because of those agencies. Now, I also think that the state and federal government, why can I not stop myself in these moments? They know how much you're supposed to pay. Why don't they just tell us? But, there is a component of like, where's the quality there?
The complexity, they don't know how much you're supposed to pay.
I know.
And the other thing that's interesting to me too, I'm trying to get through the Internal Revenue Service to solve two issues right now. I'm on a power of attorney. I'm on the power of attorney as a CPA, which means if I'm in a firm that's not licensed, I still have to use that designation to represent anybody before the Internal Revenue Service, unless I go get some other designation. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, and so to represent somebody before the Internal Revenue Service, there's several classifications. Attorney, CPA is number 2. I think
You have the enrolled agent.
Enrolled agent.
Member of your family, I mean, that's down there a ways. Okay, I'm not a CPA and I'm not an enrolled, I'm a CPA, but I'm not a CPA, acting as CPA. So how do I represent somebody? How do I do that?
That's a super interesting. I hadn't thought about that aspect as well. Like, what are they? Yeah.
So the tax side of it is really pretty weird. And I appreciate your patience with me as I ask these questions, because I look at the world a little bit differently, because that's where I practice.
And if I could just add a comment to what you were saying from the Fed side on the back end, working the collection piece after these things take effect, that there is a mindset with very assertive, aggressive tax and wealth planning that says, I'd rather just be penalized and take the hit than not go out to get the initial results. And I'll take a chance that I may get caught or I may not get caught. And so there are mechanisms in place where maybe the Fed side doesn't have the answer, the State Department of Revenue doesn't have the answer, but I think that's where it's real important, where we all in concert, in partnership, address those things because of that mindset.
And the attorney example that I used, it was a total audit lottery question, total audit lottery. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it with the IRS, how they are right now. He didn't say that, but that was right behind the scenes. And all the attorney was going to do was write a letter and, oh, don't worry about penalties. You don't have to worry about penalties. And I turn to you, an attorney letter does not save you from penalties. Hasn't for years. That's what he told the client with me on the phone.
And then the money that's made on the back end of the fallout, it's money on the front end, it's money on the back end.
Yeah. So there's some things there that I am concerned about it, and maybe, other states aren't concerned, but I just haven't figured out how it works.
Logan, do you have anything?
I'm pleased with the way the discussion's going. It's kind of matches my mindset. And then just to reiterate the questions I think we're answering. One is, should we regulate firms? And I think the answer is a pretty resounding yes for that. This is just a general concept. Then the next step is, do we regulate the firm has the service agreement with the CPA firm, right? And that's maybe a thornier question, but I think we're landing on yes there too. We should regulate the firm that controls the CPA firm. And I maybe that was a slip up, say control, but I do think that's kind of the truth,
I think funds is a really big piece, and it's introduced, the term is, no, it's not control, it's significant influence is the sort of buzzword now that's getting kicked all around, and can you exert significant influence? And the argument, well, of course not.
Yep.
But yeah, same thing.
And then for the public, when you're dealing with one of these firms, you know, let's take an absurd example. A single CPA has a firm and owns the attest side and has gotten private equity to own the non-attest side. And now you're emailing as a client to the CPA, and then with the audit stuff, right? And you like, that's in your mind. This is a CPA. This is a CPA. And then you have a tax thing or consulting thing, and suddenly they're not using CPA in their email anymore, and they're not at a CPA firm anymore somehow magically. And you're like, oh, well, you know, now you have a complaint. Who am I going to complain to? I thought this was a CPA. You know, it's just like from a consumer standpoint, it seems like a total nightmare to not regulate the firm that has significant influence over the CPA firm. So yeah, long story short, I like where this discussion is going. I think we should answer yes to both questions.
We have to get complaints from a non-attest or consulting perspective, or I guess maybe on the tax consulting side, but.
Do we get complaints on the non-attest side?
Yeah, we do.
Or non-tax? We're saying
non-tax, not attest, like.
So within the non-attest space, segregating out the tax piece. So you're talking about like wealth management, advisory, consultancy.
Yeah.
Do we get a ton of?
We don't get a ton.
Mostly just advising, like, so you should go do this, and so I just have it.
Yeah, we do have. I mean, what's painful for me in this is that there is one very, very public case that we had that I think was on the wealth management side of the equation. That was actually one of the most difficult ones for this book that we struggled with for decades, right? But you could also make an argument that's an outlier. Okay, so that's one case, right? It was just a particularly bad one where the board struggled for decades to really kind of get to a resolution because, well, we got to a resolution, but making it stick became a really, really difficult effort for us. So it does happen, but there's not a ton. But that was wealth management for sure.
I would say the most common would be like somebody that is in a trust capacity, like a fiduciary responsibility that's not necessarily tax. We've had cases there.
Fiduciary, okay.
Oh, yeah, we have. Yeah, that's right.
So I was trying to answer your question of thinking like outside the box, like what cases have we had? We've had several of those where somebody's like doing something irresponsible as a trustee.
Yeah, and we've actually had a contested case with I don't know whether it was, yes, it was a contested case actually. In one of those fiduciary arenas. Yeah, I remember presenting on one a year or two ago at a DOJ conference. Yeah.
And those were people holding out as CPAs or no? Or they were just in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we need a motion to move this concept forward and give Angie more work?
I don't know that we need a motion. I think that Angie was looking for clarity as to will the board still love me if I write language? And I think we have an answer.
Love you?
No, love Angie, not me. Oh, yeah, language, not my voice.
So across the states, like what is the dividing line here between like how many are going this direction versus saying no thanks?
Going in this direction, exactly nobody other than us, right? There is one other state that we share a border with, Nevada, that is in a very similar position to us in terms of the problem that they're trying to face, because they are actually most similar to us with respect to their current approach of broadly regulating firms and not really wanting to give up that space that they're in. I can't go as far as saying that their board is necessarily going to follow us where we're going with our solution, but I know that they're really struggling and certainly appreciating what we're trying to do, because that's probably the only state where I could see a colleague state following kind of in our footsteps, but they're not going to get ahead of us. They're not going to get ahead of us. Is kind of the sense that I'm getting. I'm getting a lot of sympathy. They have an extremely experienced executive director who has, quite frankly, 4 times more experience in accountancy world than I do. And she's very appreciative of our work, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that will translate automatically into their board saying, oh, let's just do what Oregon did, right? Because it is, it's essentially we're essentially saying we're willing to stand up for this and saying this is the right thing to do. And right now, there's no one else willing to walk that path.
Quick question on that regard. Sorry, a little sick from my congestion here. Does that create issues if we're so unique in regulating the non-attest firm? Is that kind of gonna be
That's
feasible?
a really difficult question to answer. I would say that the slightly flippant response is that firm regulation has been incredibly messy and inconsistent across the lines for decades. Right? So it's a little bit of a flippant response, but it's also true. Because it could be read as I'm saying it doesn't matter. And I wouldn't be quite comfortable looking you as a very serious board member and intellectually very smart person in the eye and say it doesn't create issues, because I'm sure that you can make arguments that anytime that there is a disconnect in terms of how jurisdictions approach policy issues in a highly integrated profession, sure, it would be nice if we had more consistency, right? Because it does create problems for compliance for firms and individuals if different jurisdictions have different policy approaches, right? But I'm not sure that the right answer for that, I don't know that that necessarily means that the right answer is for us to simply align for the sake of alignment.
Well, and we currently have that problem.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
so a firm in California, I don't know what California's rules are. In Idaho, a tax firm in Idaho does not need to likely register in Idaho. But if they're also here in Oregon, they got to register here. And we're intending to keep that the same.
But I'm thinking from the standpoint of legislation and the public, this isn't going to be a new concept that nobody's heard of. It's not like this has been around for years and we're just going to, hey, we're finally adopting this. So you're going to have to explain to people that have no idea what you're talking about, all the complexities behind what this means.
Yeah.
So
yes, and it gets worse. So you're absolutely right. And then take one more step down the road. Not only do you face that hurdle, you will face a whole other one, right? Because what we just talked about effectively sums up as we think the right response for us is to regulate this and maintain the consistency of where we're at. That's the positive argument, right? But you're also going to have to explain to a legislature that has just taken a stance of saying the solution over on the medical profession side is to require 51% ownership of medical professionals of these medical entities. Why are you coming to the Oregon legislature? I'm playing devil's advocate right now, right? Why are you coming to the Oregon legislature with a proposal that would essentially do the opposite?
Yeah.
That would allow for private equity to actually own a CPA firm, right? So you're going to have to explain why this is the better policy answer and the more appropriate one, because we can't actually hold the door back.
well, isn't that the national level? Everybody says you should be for the medical side, 51%. Yeah, so
Well,
that's
I don't know.
I mean, long-term risk would be my response to that. I mean, no one's gonna die under my watch.
Oh, right, I mean, we are not the same as the medical profession, I agree. But no, that is not nationally what the rules are.
Oh,
We are the
okay.
first state to do that,
Oh, oh, geez.
right?
Yeah. You
Um,
are gonna have fun with that, Mark.
So, I mean, right, so it's like, okay, I mean, I suspect that there will be traction in other states on the medical matter. And then how does that then infiltrate to other regulated professions? I air quoted that for.
And you're asking for another revenue source in a down county economy. Okay, yeah, so this should be good.
It's not a new revenue source, it's maintaining what we already regulate.
We're gonna get 2 firm registration fees out of what used to be 1 firm registration.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think there's that many, right? No.
Well, yes, it used to be this. Yeah, it's
Jesus. No, it used to be this and now it's this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blow up Sherry in the process because I'm ready for a break and say,
I know.
we'll just combine it with a fee bill
Yeah.
that we're gonna ask our CPA to.
I don't think she
So
should.
she's still smiling, so clearly she didn't hear what she was saying.
Yeah. All right, I think we can wrap up this discussion.
Yeah.
Yet again, for now. And we're gonna talk about it a little bit more in 9A on the NASDA PE APS white paper after we take a break.
Yes.
Let's take a break until 10:40. But he's here via Zoom. And here he is. Okay, great. Okay, so we are on 9A in the work session section. NASDA PE APS white paper. So included in the packet was the initial white paper, just some quick background. This task force was kind of formed to try to figure out what we're doing about PE and APS. And so this initial white paper is trying to lay out their kind of the questions that they need to be answering. And they're soliciting feedback on that. So we will deep dive this on January 29th board meeting. The LRC will do some work on it on their January 9th board meeting. I figured that wasn't a surprise. I think we've had a discussion about that. I know that Ray Johnson has some kind of initial thoughts, which is great. It's always a great resource there. So, yeah. Other things you wanted to come out of the work session? Any comments on this?
Really, I mean, I think that it'll be really interesting to see how this evolves once we see also get a real interesting timing overlay between the piece that is not yet final, but probably will become final in terms of how peer review is handling APSP.
Yeah.
And the fact that we, I think, should be about a week to 10 days, max 2 weeks away from AICPA peak coming out with their
Now, a week, 10 days?
yeah,
Okay.
with their potential revisions to the independence rules, right? Because ultimately, all of those things I think need to play with this, and we should have all 3 data points available to the LRC on the 9th and to the board on the 29th. And then it will get fun.
Nice. Yeah, well, and yeah, we'll have a NASA board meeting before that as well.
Because that's really, to me, the 29th will be a really heavy lifting meeting for us because I see we're going to have to figure out, do we say something substantively, not just to this white paper, but potentially also to the first really concrete kind of exposure from the national level that will come from what we're hearing, at an expedited comment period on the independence rules, right? And that's, I mean, I don't have to explain to this board that any changes to the independence rules are a pretty big deal. So we'll have to look at that super closely and at the same time. It'll be fun.
Next item, which is, I think, will be the question, right? EG. Direction to council on drafting of ledge concept for consideration at January 2026 LRC and board meeting.
This is your
Do you have
very
clarity?
last and only opportunity to ask this board any questions related to drafts.
I think I'm good.
Do you have any, is there anything that's on your radar that you feel like we can discuss in public session that you would need for drafting purposes?
I mean, I think it's just, just coming up with the language, how to fit it in a way that's effective. So,
Yeah.
but I will work on that.
Is it reasonable from a process standpoint that the first job one is for you to kind of come up with an initial draft? We run it through the LRC, we run it through the board meeting, and then after January, assuming there's some version of a green light to keep going, that then afterwards is when you go to the second stage and say, let's also run it through DOJ appellate? Or is that something you would do early on in that process?
I think I'll probably loop them in earlier.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that that's great. I just want to be really clear with the board that my intent is to pull out all the stops because this will be a big deal. You know, the more public this gets, particularly once we get to language, right? I want to make sure it's as buttoned down and as defensible as possible, which means not just spending money on ENG, it also means spending money on another layer of review in the Department of Justice, appellate section, strictly from a standpoint of how do we improve our chances in case somebody decides that they want to take us to court over what we're trying to do here.
So we're going to blow our DOJ budget in the first year of our.
I don't think so.
We're trying to not blow it by having good language. What I'm trying to say is if we blow it, I want to be able to blame DOJ.
I'm now adjourning the public session of the board to enter executive session under authority of ORS 192.660, paren 2, paren F, paren H. Council advice. The time is now 10:52 a.m.
This isn't just council advice.
Well, I don't know, that's what it says. And other things that we do in executive session.
Are there no cases?
And records exempt from disclosure.
Okay. And records exempt from disclosure pursuant to a different ORS.
But it's
Same
Yeah.
ORS.
yeah, it's for some reason I screwed up the text.
Well, wait. Okay, 10:52, staff please remove any guests from Zoom and guests in the courtroom are asked to be outside or to be summoned back. I'm now adjourning the executive session of the Board of Accountancy on December 1st, 2025. The time is now 1:06 p.m. I'm taking a brief pause to allow members of the public to join. Feel free to bring them in. Yep. That way then we can get the meeting.
Yeah.
We have people joining us from physically here in the board office that are coming into the meeting, although Sherry's on a call. Sherry's on a call until from 1 to 2. Great. Okay. This is Haley Lyons, Chair of the State of Oregon Board of Accountancy, and I am calling the public session of the Board of Accountancy back to order. It is Monday, December 1st, 2025, and the time is 1:07 p.m. Okay, I am in my agenda up. There we go. So I'm taking motions at this time.
I make a motion for case 25-006 for insufficient evidence of OAR 801-010-0010, Pren 1, Pren B, due professional care.
Can you state your name?
Jason Robinson.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Megan Hartley, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? We'll take a roll call vote. Jason?
Aye. Jason Robinson.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffat, I.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
I make a motion, Jason Robinson, I make a motion in case 25006 for sufficient evidence of OAR 801-030-0020, Pren 8, Pren B, Board Communications and Investigations.
Megan Hartley, second.
Any discussion? Let's call for a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffat, I.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
I make a motion for case 25-007 for insufficient evidence of OAR 801-030-0010, Pren 1, Pren B, due professional care.
Megan Hartley, second.
Okay, any discussion? Take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffat, I.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
I make a motion for case 25-007 for sufficient evidence of OAR 801-030-0020, Pren 8, Pren B, Pren A, for communications and investigations.
Megan Hartley, second.
Any discussion? Take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffat, I.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
I make a motion for case 25-027 for sufficient evidence of ORS 673.170, Pren 2, Pren M, and Pren O.
Megan Hartley, second. Oh,
This is, was it two?
25-027.
This is that additional case.
Okay, great.
Connected to.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm sorry, Megan.
Megan Hartley, second.
Thank you. Let's take a vote. Any discussion? Okay, I'm back.
Sorry, Jason Robinson, aye.
Thank you.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffat, I.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
Didn't mean to throw you out there, Matt.
That's okay.
I make a motion for case 25-008 for sufficient evidence for both OAR 801-010-0130, Pren 2, and OAR 801-030-0020, Pren 8, Pren B, Pren A.
Megan Hartley, second.
Any discussion? Take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffat, I.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
I make a motion for case 25-009 for sufficient evidence of both OAR 801-010-0010, Pren 1, Pren B, and OAR 801-030-0020, Pren 8, Pren B.
Megan Hartley, second.
Any discussion?
Oh, and multiple, sorry. There was supposed to be multiple violations of OAR 801-030-0020, Pren 8, Pren B, Pren A, for communications.
Thank you.
Megan Hartley, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Let's take a vote.
Oh, Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffat, I.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, we're on 25-010.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I make a motion for case 25-010 for sufficient evidence for both OAR 801-030-0010 Pren 1 Pren B and OAR 801-030-0020 Pren 8 Pren B Pren A.
Megan Hartley, second. Thank you. Any discussion? Take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Did we get everybody? Thank you. Motion passes.
I make a motion for case 25-011 for sufficient evidence for OAR 801-030-0010 Pren 1 Pren B and OAR 801-030-0020 Pren 8 Pren B Pren A.
Megan Hartley, second. Any discussion? Take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
I make a motion for case 25-012 for sufficient evidence of both OAR 801-010-0130 Pren 1 for lapse of absence and for lapsed licenses and for OAR 801-030-0020 Pren 8 Pren B Pren A for board communications.
Megan Hartley, second. Do you have any discussion? Take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
I make a motion for case 25-013 for sufficient evidence for both OAR 801-010-0010 Pren 1 Pren B do professional care and OAR 801-030-0020 Pren 8 Pren B board communications.
Megan Hartley, second. Any discussion? Take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
I make a motion for case 25-014 for sufficient evidence for OAR 801-030-0010 Pren 1 Pren B do professional care and multiple violations for OAR 801-030-0020 Pren 8 Pren B Pren A board communications.
Megan Hartley, second. Thank you. Any discussion? Let's take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
I make a
Haley
mo-
Lyons, aye. Or it passes.
I'm just gonna go on.
Keep on going. Yeah.
I make a motion for case 25-015 for insufficient evidence of OAR 801-010-0130 Pren 1 lapse license.
Megan Hartley, second. Any discussion? Take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
I make a motion for case 25-016 for insufficient evidence of OAR 801-030-0020 Pren 5 Pren B acting through others.
Megan Hartley, second. Any discussion? Let's take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
I make a motion for case 2019-RPT-046 to close.
Megan Hartley, second.
Yep. Any discussion? Take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
I close all the rest of them, just, okay. I make a motion for case 2025-IMQ-014, 2025-IMQ-018, 2025-IMQ-020, 2025-120, holy cow, 2025 IMQ 025, 2025 IMQ 026, 2025 IMQ 027, 2025 IMQ 032, and 2025 IMQ 024 to close.
Megan Hartley, second.
Any discussion? All right, let's take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes.
And last one, I make a motion to approve the reciprocity of Daniel Lee.
The application.
The application, sorry, reciprocity
Name.
of Daniel Lee. Jason Robinson. Oh my God, I just want to get over this. So I'm going to redo this. Jason Robinson, I make a motion to approve the application for reciprocity of Daniel Lee.
Megan Hartley, second.
All right, any discussion? Let's take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes. Are there any other motions? There are not. Okay, great. Okay, we are moving on to item 12 of the public agenda, consideration of settlement proposals.
Okay. We have the first settlement for 25001, 25002, and 25003 for due care and what's the term, Board Communications. A gross of 3,000 in penalties, 1,000 of costs, staying 2,000 in penalties, 1,000 in costs, for a net payable of 1,000 in penalties. Do you want to do both or go one at a time?
Do both.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay, the second settlement for cases 24018 and 25005 for due care and Board Communications was 2,000 in penalties, 1,000 in costs, staying 1,000 in penalties and 1,000 in costs, for a net of 1,000 in penalties.
I make a motion, Jason Robinson, I make a motion to approve both settlements.
Megan Hartley, second.
Any discussion? Let's take a vote.
Jason Robinson, aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Rob Valdivia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes. Thank you. We're moving on to the report of the chair. That's me. NASBA update. There was a NASBA board meeting. And we've talked quite a bit about some of the big NASBA matters going on in terms of the APSPE task force white paper. There was a board meeting, an annual meeting in October. Have we met since then? We have not. Okay, great. I would love to invite both of you to make any comments from the board meeting and annual meeting as you see fit. Anything relevant?
Well, I thought it kind of interesting. I think it's the first time they did this. They had a so-called self-assessment.
Mm-hmm.
They hired a consultant to rate NASBA, and I think, what was it, a C they got? 70%. So in the smaller group, in the regional meeting, there was a lengthy discussion about that. And, it was my first meeting, but just hearing that for the first time, I think it was a pretty low, it was concerning, just to put it that way.
Yeah, some more backstory on that is NASBA hired a consultant to conduct a major diagnostic review of the organization as a whole. This was kind of on the backs of, we have new executive director, president of NASBA, and there was some, with the UAA and licensure pathway changes, there had been some, upset people kind of in the membership. And it spurred this diagnostic process where this consultant spoke with all NASBA board members, plus at least one I think all executive directors, if not all, almost all executive directors for the various state agencies all participated. And then a board member from each state as well was given the opportunity to participate. And the guy conducting the diagnostic was very thorough. He asked really great probing questions. They then did kind of phase 2, where they interviewed all of the staff, or a large swath of the NASBA staff, and he put together kind of a comprehensive overview. And yeah, I think it was about a C. NASBA also self-identified as a C as well, on just some areas that need to be improved. This is then going to be used to really formulate the strategic plan of the organization as a whole, kind of getting back to basics on, what's our purpose, putting on my NASBA Pacific Regional Director hat, what's our purpose as an organization, what are our goals, how are we getting there, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It was really interesting, that part, because the process of release was such that it was essentially, there was a board meeting prior to the conference where essentially the board members essentially had really no prior knowledge. It was literally done in the moment at the board meeting. And something very similar happened at the very first day of the conference, where essentially this came at everybody, literally with no context, initial context, just essentially being confronted with it, which basically meant that this was a huge undertaking and a big deal. And as Haley just pointed out, really the start of a process if something's really going to come out of it. But in that moment, there was actually very little discussion, because it was basically really overwhelming for folks to even what is this? Where did this come from? So there weren't not a lot of questions in the moment, because it was, quite frankly, a little bit overwhelming, I think, for most folks in the room to process. We did use the question opportunity to kind of clarify that this isn't just the end, but it's the beginning, and that there are I think 6 issue areas that were identified by the consultant, that essentially NASBA is now hoping to essentially tackle 1 issue area per month over the next 6 months. And then essentially stay accountable and essentially report back on what it is they're actually trying to do with those areas. So that I think that it's a really good sign, notwithstanding the grade, that they were willing to do this kind of publicly and not just have it kind of happen in a much less public way. So there's hope there that with accountability and the right follow-up, that something good is going to come out of what was a huge amount of effort, with hundreds of interviews and an enormous amount of data.
Yeah. There was a town hall conducted the 24th of November. If you're interested in watching that, you can view the slides and view the video. So, thanks for bringing that up.
And beyond that, the only other thing I was going to add from the conference is, and you picked up a little bit of this in our earlier discussion today around the APS PE piece, is I think it's fair to say that while there was a lot of earnest discussion at the conference around APS PE, which kind of dominated a lot of the goings on, it's really still more of a, much more of a searching for answers and a kind of a careful trying to explore the territory rather than any kind of a sense of breakthrough of this is what we should be doing. And, there is a consensus in this particular arena emerging on X. We're still very early stages in many ways around this. There wasn't really any huge insight or breakthrough that I was able to take away from that, from the conference. I do think that there is a lot of goodwill and earnestness in the discussions themselves. I do think the environment is pretty good, even though we're super behind the curve.
Committee, I'm moving on. Anybody have any questions about a NASBA update? Committee appointments and committee liaison appointments are made.
Yes, we are, that there's still a lot of work that we have to do, particularly on the BOAC side, where we're really, where we're really hurting and need to do some, work, particularly now in December, because we have January 6th, 5 BOAC, something like that, yeah. Right, because it's usually the first week of January, so we're trying to kind of up our numbers a bit. I will say that, grasping the name here, Sean Wallace.
Yeah.
Did a really we basically via Haley, I got authority to ask Sean Wallace, who's a member of BOAC, to kind of step up while we didn't have a chair elected to basically run the BOAC, and he did a really fabulous job, and I just wanted to call it out. He was really, really good.
You said elections. At our January meeting, we will need to do elections, board leadership elections. So if you have an interest in one of the positions, be thinking about that and come ready to throw your hand in there. Okay. Raul, report of vice chair.
Nothing much more than what I said before.
Okay.
Oh, maybe so. Keep my mind. My view of NASBA was just this huge behemoth of a thing that I would never be a part of or be involved with. But just being there seemed like everyone was really earnest and really happy to be there. They were happier. They seemed more happier at other times, especially during the evening, than others.
That's racks.
But it was good to be there and see the cogs working, the transfer of the chair, and it was very interesting, and I'll have a different viewpoint of the function, just like I used to for this board,
right?
Before I got on, so it was good to go.
Great, glad you could go. Jason, report of treasurer.
So if you guys haven't had a chance to look over that, our projected amounts of $1 million. It is actually now spent. So we've given $1 million to people that are going to work our grant fund for those scholarships. So yay. Other than that, we're still looking good. So.
Awesome. Okay. Executive director update.
Oh, the one with no time.
The one that with no
I love
time.
that.
Yeah, did you see?
You get 2 hours. I get.
Yeah. Martin puts time limits on the chair agenda, and he puts no time limit next to him and 1 minute next to Shelley.
As the chair, you should adjust that.
I should have.
You gotta have at least a little bit of fun with that, but I will keep mine actually. I will keep mine super short. First of all, I want to just say it was really great that just before there was a memo that came out from the governor's office around travel restrictions, that we were able to ensure that Shelley and Raul were able to join us at the NASBA conference that we just discussed, and have that opportunity for Shelley to actually really learn and see that environment firsthand. So I'm really, really grateful that that's done. I think that memo came out, so this is the other part of my substantive update. there have been some gyrations on the back end at the state level because of our budgetary situation overall as a state. For a while, it looked like there was going to be a roughly $365 million shortfall in the state budget. And that's, the environment in which the travel restriction memo came out, which at least on a go forward basis means that at least with respect to board's service, as opposed to going to a conference, Haley and I should be okay. The other stuff gets a little bit more dicey now. The picture has since improved. The latest forecast, I think, reduced at least the official hole in the state budget by a pretty significant amount to, I don't know, Jason, if you recall, but I think it was like 60 some million dollars rather than a 300 and some.
Yeah.
That said, I do want to say for us as a small other funds agency, you see the first breaking of the wall going on, right? Up until now, we've been really insulated from the, if you will, the really difficult budget discussions. And they said, we don't need to talk to the other funds agencies and agencies like this one. And this time around, we even had, on the same day as the town hall, a joint Ways and Means Committee meeting where we were originally supposed to appear on a mandatory basis. And then they pulled back from that and actually got some flack for, hey, why you're making us go through, making budget cut proposals and so on. So you can tell that things are getting a little bit nervous, if you will, and that wall that there used to be about we don't need to talk to the other funds agencies about our budget problems and we need to have the others come up with cut lists broke a little bit. It kind of closed back up again, but things are getting brittle. So it's really good timing wise that we got this stuff with our scholarships. It kind of did a fait accompli because who knows what's going to happen next? Because all these numbers that we just circulated, please keep in mind, this is what they don't include. Nobody really knows the additional budgetary impacts of all the uncertainties of what's going on at the federal level, right? That's not included in those numbers, right? Because those are not known impacts at this time, right? And so I do think that the pendulum and the mood can change rather quickly. And it's really, really awesome that we got this over the finish line, before folks might start changing their minds. So that's one substantive piece I wanted to just say. Now, on a much happier front, the main thing I wanted to just briefly talk about is that with respect to the board's strategic plan, right? So the pipeline committee stuff, that investment in our in our reinvestment in our pipeline, that's pretty much done now and in the hands of OSCPA, right? OSCPA Educational Foundation now gets to implement, right? What that means on my end, very personally, is that all that time and energy spent on this piece, I can now start, especially with Shelley being here, I can now start shifting toward actually going out there and being more present. And you saw some of the first instances of this. So the spend trip, right? Being able to join Shelley at that OSCPA event and then leveraging that to a beautiful, Logan was super flexible and allowed me into his class the next day so that I could stay, overnight in Bend and combine the OSCPA event with actually going into his class. There is some follow-up that he and I still need to work on to actually get into the main campus, right? I'm working on something very similar with the U of O to be able to get that done. I've been in the contact with the dean there. We just haven't closed the loop. And I'm quite frankly, currently just on email, but the next piece for me is actually connecting with the community colleges, right? We had one amazing representative of Community College World, Cynthia Killingsworth, on our pipeline committee, and she now wants to have the conversation about what types of appearances on my end in Community College World would actually make sense in terms of pipeline and presentations, right? So I'm just really excited about now being able to shift, the time and energy that went into pipeline to actually get to do other versions of that outreach work. So that's what I'm really really excited about. And around that, of course, I need to actually write up a plan. I mean, this is the state of Oregon after all. And I've had some really great initial discussions with Shelley and Quinn also on a tracking tool, because I want to make sure that you get more than just these occasional one-off reports of where did Martin go. But what I would like to get to is to actually have much more kind of, if you will, normed, okay, here's my monthly report, here's all the outreach activity that's happened, right? And kind of put some, kind of go beyond the just occasional reporting at the board meeting to, hey, let's have some data. What did we actually do with this resource shift in the strategic plan? What actually happened outreach-wise? While it's going to be a lot about me, that might not be exclusively about me. There might be things that Andrew does, that Shelley does on an outreach basis, right? So we're also working toward formalizing that stuff. Hang on to your hats a little bit on the 29th, right? Because in addition to all the other stuff that we've talked about, we're going to need to also bring some pieces that prepare us for the next cycle of the budget process to the January board meeting. So we have some direction before we put together a budget proposal that needs to go in some version, draft version, before the June board. One of the things that I've asked my staff to do, and that actually we have in this case, a formal request out of the last budget cycle on from the Legislative Fiscal Office, is for us to say, hey, you haven't looked at your key performance measure construct in terms of any changes or anything for several cycles. And there were good reasons for that, and they were absolutely right. I pretty much suggested that we need to do that. They then came back with a formal amendment. Yes, you must do that. So that's okay, because pretty much I told them we would need to do this. So we're working internally in a run-up to the January board meeting to say, okay, most of our stuff right now, for those of you that are kind of recalling this, is on the compliance side of the equation. And while we might do some tweaking there, it really means we're doing probably far less than we could or should in terms of how we measure performance on the licensing side of the equation. So there is some real room for us to have some fun and do some improvements that we can bring you a draft of in January, and kind of see for the board level, hey, here's what we think we could do externally facing toward the legislature. Maybe here's some stuff that we want to do internally, and just get some feedback, right? So that it aligns with what your hopes and visions are related to, strategic plan, other pieces, and saying, are we hitting the right notes? Are we hitting the right emphasis? Because nothing is set in stone in January, right? It's really just, are we on the right track? Because I will probably have to have initial discussions in April, May with CFO, with LFO, and then we will, it's not a great idea to not have the board see anything about that until it's time to actually sign off on stuff in June. And it's usually probably by the June board meeting is when we need to be ready to say, okay, here's the finalized version. It will be much better if we have an initial discussion first in June. So with that, that's really all I will do on the executive director's report side, other than it feels really great that we are where we are. We're probably not doing enough celebrating, but there's a lot that happens.
So just out of curiosity, Martin, you said that travel restrictions.
Yeah.
Are we still able to send our new board member to NASBA to get that new board member training?
All I will say officially right now is stay tuned. What I don't want to get super far in detail on that in public session right now, because my plan, quite frankly, is to have a conversation with the governor's office where there's a number of items I need to discuss with them actually this week. And I simply plan to have a very direct conversation with my policy advisor and see how that goes. Because it's really about what is the governor's vision around where is the line between essential versus non-essential travel. And they've given us some examples of what they consider as non-essential, but there's a little bit of that, if you will, gray area. And I want to get a little bit of a more direct conversation behind me with the governor's office before I more publicly commit to, yeah, this can still happen versus no, I think we're.
What do the NASPA scholarships cover?
Which is one of the questions, like, does it matter if we actually get reimbursed for this? Because there is stuff that we will probably get reimbursed from NASPA.
Yeah.
What makes the difference, right? So.
But I think it would be an easy argument to, or an easy discussion to have with the governor's office to say it's an essential part of this. Before you came along, we were very disconnected from NASPA. I've seen all the good that we've done by being a bigger part of what NASPA has to offer and being able to make a definite direction shift on how they operate and how they influence other boards around the nation. So if we're going to be on the bleeding edge and do some of the crazy things that we're doing here to protect the public, we need to be more involved in NASPA to be able to guide that ship to be in a better place too. So
that's what I got.
Great, thank you. Yeah, good question.
With no time.
No time. Martin didn't use up all of his time, Shelley, so you have time.
Yeah, so I'll take the other hour and a half. Yeah, so I just have a quick update. We are in the midst of firm renewal, and we've had about 130 firm renewals come across our desks that are ready to go. That's all I have.
I didn't include you when I was asking about the NASDAQ annual meeting, because I guess I didn't even realize that you were able to go. Were there any takeaways you had from there that you think is important for the good of the order?
In addition to what's already been mentioned, there was a piece that came up in our regional meeting at the tail end. Should I mention the state or no? The executive director for the state of Texas mentioned an issue surrounding chartered accountants and the fact that in the state of Texas, chartered accountant firms cannot hold a license. And so they're seeing a situation where chartered accountants are attempting to open brick and mortar storefronts, and because of their inability to do so, they then tack on to a licensed tax person or accountant to work with. And that segued into my piece with the IRS in a project I was working on where we saw foreign accountants using an EFIN of a legitimate practitioner while they had a PTIN. PTINs are very easy to come by, EFINs are not easy to come by. And so the same sort of segue of a non-compliance with chartered accountant firms popped up, which was kind of interesting. And I know that we have the chartered accountants of India either coming to Oregon or already here because they've advertised it, but I don't know if this is a widespread problem in Oregon.
And basically there's interest by some of my colleagues to actually deep dive into this topic a little bit more. And we might, that's not a certain thing yet, but we might, give it a session as executive director conference that comes up in March.
Great, thank you. Okay, complaints committee, we have the meeting summary for November 6th and the report from November 6th. Raul, any comments on those?
No, we just, there was a lot of closures. We just went through them a little while ago. But it seems to be, there's a lot of, and we're seeing those, just the lapsed complaints. It just seemed to be a lot of them.
Yeah.
Just want to make that comment.
Yeah, I wonder what's causing that. Okay, peer review oversight committee, Megan.
Nothing really specific of note in that meeting.
Great, thank you. Ratification requests, CPA certificates, permits, and firm registrations. These we do need a motion for.
Yeah, and that should have been in your original.
Yes, they were in the original public.
I make a motion to ratify all the CPA candidates and firm registrations that presented.
Thank you,
Jason Robinson.
Megan Hartley, second.
Okay, any discussion? Right, let's take a vote, starting with
Jason Robinson. Aye.
Megan Hartley, aye.
Well, Livia, aye.
Tanya Moffett, aye.
Logan Steele, aye.
Haley Lyons, aye. Motion passes. Congratulations to all those CPA candidates and firm registrationers. Okay, announcements. Next regular board meeting will be Thursday, January 29th, 2026 at 8:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I am now adjourning this meeting. 1:48 p.m.